Okay, hello everybody and welcome. Just a few little housekeeping announcements for getting started today. Again, if you're try to keep your microphone muted for most of the presentation here. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat below, and our staff here will stay on top of them and get them answered. We will be holding off on the questions a little bit, just so we can answer them all together at the end. And we may find that some of your answers to your questions do pop up within the presentation. So that's what our process will be tonight. Like LP mentioned, we are recording this session. And it will be either emailed or posted onto the website for reference, or to share with other coaches who maybe couldn't make it, or, just for your reference purposes. Yeah, so that's that. Like I said, welcome. We have some OVA staffers here on the call here that will be a part of the presentation. So I'll just start with our YC crew, our youth competitions crew. This is Caitlin Mallion. She's and Mark Wiersma. They're our part of our delivery team that do an excellent job with administering the tournaments throughout the year. We got Alicia Liddams, our program director. LP Mainville, our athlete development director. And I believe, yeah, Lindsay's here too. Lindsay Bax is our business development manager, as well as Joanne Lubitich, our executive director. So we're all here, and we'll do our best to make sure we answer your questions as best we can throughout this process. Okay, so 1 second here, and I will get our presentation started. Okay. LP, do I have sharing?
You should. I will. You're a co-host, so you should be able to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
We're good. Okay, so this is our coach's introduction for the Early Contact Initiative, which is what we'd like to introduce for the coming coming year for 2021-2022. So let's just dive in here. So we'll start with our agenda. So we're going to go over why we chose to improve the competition structure, and how it fits into our mission and goals as an organization, what the Early Contact Initiative is, timelines and next steps, and then Lindsay's going to dive into some marketing tools that we have for you, and kind of explain Find Your Fit. So without further ado, LP.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Hello, everybody. We'll go back one there, Carrie, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So yeah, welcome to this call, everybody. Happy to be with you tonight, talking about volleyball and about next season. We're all very excited about next season. So before we get into the details of this Early Contact Initiative, we wanted to talk a little bit about our OVA's mission and strategic objective. This past year and a half, there was a lot of work that was done by the community, by our OVA staff, board of directors, to actually create our new strategic plan. And in that plan, we outlined the mission of the OVA, which is that the OVA is an athlete-centered association providing leadership and expertise in the growth and development and delivery of volleyball in Ontario. And I like to remind that for everybody, because I think it's important that we are all on the same page as to kind of what we have decided as an association to do and to strive for. And we've outlined there just a few of the many strategic objectives that are outlined in that plan for the next 4 or 5 years. And the ones that we wanted to highlight were, well, the ones you see on the screen. So we definitely want to deliver quality, fit for purpose, and experiential programming for our athletes. Very, very important. One of the things we want to do as well is to remove barriers to participation. We want to make sure that we are inclusive and that kids entering our sport have as many options as possible to do that in a meaningful way. And we also want to keep an open mind and commit to an innovation mindset, meaning to not be afraid of exercising some leadership and looking at new options, new ways to face the challenges that present themselves. So now that we kind of have a little understanding of just a few kind of core elements of our OVA strategic plan, just a little bit of context as well for everybody to understand where this comes from. So in the past few years, actually in the few years leading to the pandemic, we saw a very rapid growth of participation in the OVA, and especially at the younger ages. And what we did at the time, when we're in the middle of everything and everything goes fast and there's so much to do, and okay, well, we want to grow and we want to allow those younger athletes to come in. And what we did is we essentially did it using the same model that we were using for older age groups, right? Just because it's kind of the simplest way to do it and to add new age groups. And so there was not as much thought as there could have been into how we can really meet the needs of those younger athletes that start the sport of volleyball. So we experienced that rapid growth. And other piece of context, this past year, there was a new LTD, so long-term development model, released by the Canadian Sport for Life. And that was actually really good because it kind of gave Volleyball Canada an opportunity to review our volleyball LTD document that was last created in 2006. So we're 15 years later, and we're soon going to have a new version of this document based on the one that was released by the Canadian Sport for Life last year. And so we'll talk about it a little bit later. But that's another piece of context that's really important to understand kind of where we're going to talk about tonight comes from. Another thing that happened over the past year and a half was the creation of the Indoor Volleyball Development Committee, which is a committee that consists of 11 people, coaches, club executives from 9 different clubs across the province. And this committee was instrumental in the creation of this initiative, and we'll talk a bit about it later, but they were very, very, very helpful. And working with this committee has been awesome over the past year and a half. They advise our staff. When there are some questions around rules, try window, all these sorts of things. We go to this committee, and then they go back to you guys, and then report their recommendations. And in this case, actually, the idea of the initiative actually came from the committee, and they came up with some suggestions and initiated this big project that we're talking about tonight. So that's a very important element of context. And last but not least, we kept hearing from members that there were some issues that needed to be addressed as part of our competition system. And so when you consider all these things together, and the fact that we were in a pandemic this past year, and that things that we usually do were quite disturbed, it gave us an opportunity to really dive deep into looking at our competition structure and looking for opportunities to improve. So as I mentioned, the Indoor Volleyball Development Committee came to us with some suggestion to improve our competition system at the younger ages. And we started working with them. And with the new LTD available, we thought it was a great opportunity to actually look at research-based and LTD documents to really look at the characteristics of a quality, positive, developmentally beneficial youth sport experience. What kind of programming does put the health and the needs of the kids first? And we wanted to look at that and say, okay, how can we then adapt our programs to these characteristics, right? Moving on, Carrie, s'il vous plaît. And so what we found looking with the committee at different characteristics in the LTD document and in the research is that, kids in programming and quality programming, they want fun, joy, and intrinsic reward. So that means that, intrinsic reward meaning not only just getting medals and getting wins, but actually feeling proud of themselves, right? And feeling like they're supported by their peers, that kind of stuff. They want access, right? So it's really important for the young athletes to remove barriers to access because they just want to participate, right? And then it's important for them to have access to developmentally appropriate instruction and formats of play. It's also important to de-emphasize winning and results so that the focus is not always on winning today and winning a medal, that stuff, right? It's about a lot more. It's about feeling that, I contribute to the team, feeling that I'm improving. That's what the research shows kids want out of sport experiences. And then it's really important to promote development and participation. So once we looked at that, we wanted to see, okay, well, these characteristics are great. Now, do we even need to change anything? Like, let's look at the way that our system is built to see if there needs to be some change. So we looked at our traditional competition system, and a few things that we saw was that our divisions are organized by chronological age. All right. So that means that it creates a little bit of barriers to entry in the sense that if you are a new player and you start playing club volleyball at 14, you may not be as good as the athletes who have been playing there for 3 years who are your age. And because it's the only place or age group in which you can play, perhaps you're actually kept out of volleyball, right? Then when we looked at our system, we saw that athlete preparation is actually geared towards a short-term outcome. Because our tiered system has promotion and relegation, there's actually a pretty big incentive for teams starting with the first event in the season to win so that they can move up or so that they can stay and not be relegated, because nobody likes to be relegated. And so that incentive of winning actually influences the way that as coaches, we coach our athletes and the choices that we make in terms of creating equal participation opportunities for our athletes and stuff like that. And the other thing that we saw was that our system actually encouraged early specialization, which we'll see it a little bit later, comes with some shortfalls. I'm losing my words. Excuse my French. So yeah, so we saw these things and thought, well, if we compare the characteristics of quality sport programming for young kids and what we currently do, we think that there's room for improvement, right? And so we started going to work with the IVDC, our committee, and came up with some great stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. And so that's how the Early Contact Initiative was born. And so this initiative will actually create development and appropriate divisions, right? Which means that those divisions and formats of play will be fun for our athletes. This initiative will actually decrease the focus on winning. One of the ways it's going to do that is it will eliminate the relegation. So there won't be that pressure to win so that you just stay there and you don't get relegated and play against teams that perhaps are not as good as you, for example. It will actually help delay specialization of players. And we'll see in a minute why this is a good thing. And last but not least, actually, in my opinion, the most important component of this initiative is that it will give you, as coaches, the flexibility to do what's best for your athletes, okay? And how is it gonna do that? Well, let's move on to the next slide there, Carrie, s'il vous plaît. It's gonna do that because the Early Contact Initiative is not a new program, okay? It's really important it's new, but it's not creating a new structure that you're going to be unfamiliar with. Okay, you're going to be very, very familiar with the structure. But what this does, and this initiative does, is it creates a set of new rules that didn't exist before that will actually allow you to do what you feel is right for your athletes. All right. We know that clubs are different across the province. We know that we have small clubs, big clubs, clubs in very big cities and densely populated areas, clubs in rural areas where there's not as many players. So there's all sorts of contexts. And these rules are going to let you do the things that are right for the athletes that show up at your tryouts and that actually want to play for your club and for your teams. So really, it's actually something that's gonna help you in your coaching, as opposed to pose a bunch of a set of challenges and stuff like that. So there is change, but it is important to mention, and you'll see it once we get into the detail of everything. You'll see that it's actually an opportunity for change. It doesn't mean that you actually have to change. And this is something that from some of the questions we got last week, and some of the questions that our competition staff got that we wanted to pass along to you guys tonight, is that if you don't want to change the way you're doing things, you can do that within this system, because again, it doesn't quite change the structure. It just changes the rules that you can use in order to find the right training and development opportunities for your athletes. So let's get into the details, Carrie. Oh, I forgot. There's a couple more slides over that. Sorry. This was just to show, give you a little sneak peek into the Volleyball Canada Ltd 3.0 that I spoke about earlier. That is going to come out in the next couple of months. So this is the new chart that's going to be in that document that kind of outlines the progression, between the stages of development, from the fundamentals all the way to learn to compete. So as you can see, and as you will see in the next few slides, this approach and this early contact initiative actually already fits in this not yet published LTD document that Volleyball Canada is going to put forward. So we wanted to show you that just as again, a little extra context. You're muted, Carrie.
The second time today. Okay, just to kind of give a little bit of visual of our current system and how it runs, and kind of the lack of, well, not lack of flexibility, but just how it's traditionally run. Your age, that's the division you play in. So a little bit of movement here and there where you can play, but really, if you're a 13U or 14U kid, you're in that division, and maybe you need to branch off and try something that fits your developmental need rather than your age. So the early contact initiative actually looks like this. So we have larger birth years birth eligibility years for each division. And there's way more flexibility with our age groups that will be eligible to play in each category. So just a couple notes here. You'll notice that our first division, we have a 4-on-4 Rallyball. Rallyball is triple ball. So we really took this opportunity, having a whole new wave of kids in our entry level age divisions, to really give the game a little bit of a facelift, I guess, and just make sure the name of the game was a better representation of what the goals of it actually was. Triple ball is meant to increase your rallies, increase the number of touches. So it just made sense for us to make sure that name reflected that. And again, like having a whole new cohort of kids this year, it gives us a perfect opportunity for our new ones coming in to have this as their first exposure to it. So we have 11 and 12s going into 4-on-4 Rallyball. You have some flexibilities with a number of age groups, 12, 13, 14, playing 6-on-6 Rallyball. And our 14Us have flexibility with a Rallyball, and a traditional non-specialized. So this is our, traditionally was our 14U age division, but changing it to this age category or this naming really, again, was a great representation of what we should be focusing on and what our goals of this age division really is.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So I just wanted to mention something here because we got a lot of kind of those questions last week when we spoke to the club executive. So we couldn't draw all of the possible arrows in this diagram without making it way too complicated and impossible to read. But technically, and I'm not sure, I don't think you can see my mouse, you're going to see Carrie's, but you can essentially pull any an arrow from any of these circles at the bottom, and draw them to anywhere to the right of them. All right, so meaning that you're not stuck in 6-on-6 Rallyball or in traditional non-specialized. If you're 13 or 14, there's a lot of flexibility there for you to look at the team that you have, because perhaps that you do have a group of 10, 12 athletes that you've had since they were 6 years old. And by the time they get to 13, they're way ahead of their peers of the same age. And it makes sense for them to play in traditional non-specialized. Maybe it makes sense for them to play regular, volleyball at 15U, and perhaps not play in Premier because they're 13, but perhaps playing somewhere in championship or maybe even Trillium and experience some success there, against the older athletes, but still same level athletes, because we know that that system of tier actually allows teams to find a level that matches their level, right? That's what that system is actually really good at. So we really wanted to highlight that. And similarly, if for some reason you have a group of new athletes that show up to the game, I have used the example before of you've got a couple of really physical, tall girls coming to your tryouts. They're 14. You're like, wow, these, it'd be awesome to have these girls, play with us. They're going to be great in a couple of years. They're really athletic, but they've never played a game. And we have this group of already, decently experienced athletes here at 14. So the fit's not great. Well, let's actually put them with a group of younger athletes, have them play 6-on-6 Rallyball, triple ball in the Rallyball division all year. And then at some point, when they're ready next year or the year after, whatever, let's bring them back up with the kids of their age, so that we can perform better, perhaps at 16, 17, 18, within your club. So lots of flexibility. These are just two examples of what you may want to do with your athletes. But yeah, we wanted to say that now because those were some of the questions that came up a lot last week after this one slide. So yeah. So now let's dive into the details. Let's do it, Carrie. So the first division is our 4-on-4 Rallyball. And, in a snapshot, what that 4-on-4 competition is going to do, well, 4-on-4 is obviously less players than 6. So less players on the court means that players are more involved. If they're more involved, that means they touch the ball more often. And if they touch the ball more often, well, then they're more engaged. And more engaged means fun and more development. So that's really what this 4-on-4 division is all about, and why it's there for our younger and least experienced players.
Okay. Yeah, just a little more on Rallyball. It's a format that's really geared towards our entry-level teams. It's also a great transition from house league to club. Even if your house league is based, maybe has a smash ball base or, something that does have 6 players on the court. 4-on-4 Rallyball is a great way to introduce competition, introduce the OVA to these kids, and really kind of take that next step. It's a great opportunity to learn the flow of the game and develop that fundamental skill base, grow confidence. It's can be intimidating when you're actually going out there to compete, especially when you're 11, 12, and such. All events will be developmentally focused and will be scheduled to maximize the number of games played. And one of our priorities, making sure that our entry levels are have at least amount of barriers as possible. They will have a reduced membership rate and a little bit of a different fee structure just to lower that barrier. So that's what we're looking at right now. These are just a little bit of the details. Now, I'm going to tell everybody we do have a summary chart that's ready to go with a lot of this information on it. So it will be made available shortly after this presentation. So, and it does dive into more detail than what the small summary is here. So 4-on-4 Rallyball, obviously it's our age divisions, 11 and 12, birth years 2009 and under. We are going to have a male co-ed division and a female division for this age group. Obviously, that being, we all know our girls outnumber our boys 3 to 1. And we want to make sure that any young kid that's interested in playing volleyball and happens to want to play on a male gender team, we want to make sure that they have that opportunity to do so. And with little numbers, they can just backfill their rosters with any females that they have. This was a really strong point that was coming from our smaller communities and areas that really don't have the population to pull from. These 4-on-4 Rallyball division will compete in 5 regular season events. They'll have an Ontario Championships as well. These will be all regionally based as possible competitions. Obviously, regionally based does depend on the number and area where our teams who register for these events come from. So Caitlin and Mark work their butts off trying to reduce travel as much as they can for people, and they'll be doing it again for these guys as well. It's going to be fair play rules. Another barrier that we know is going to be an issue, especially this coming September, is facilities. So we want to make sure that these guys have flexibility with their facility standards. Now, this doesn't mean you can just go and, go to a barn and throw up a net. We still want to make sure it's safe and, everything's good. But we're going to make sure that, recommended court size of 7 meters by 14 or something comparable to that. Badminton's double court is a great example. So, again, if the facility doesn't quite match, the specific, specs, we will be hoping to still use that just to make sure to reduce that barrier. It will be rotational play. I'm sorry, I have to move the screen. It's blocking the last one. And obviously there will be no specialization, and there's our net heights there. So, which is very similar to what we play now for our youngest age divisions. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now or what we've decided on for our 4-on-4 Rallyballs for some of the specs. So again, you'll have access to all this information plus more on our sheet that we will be giving. LP, did you have your hand up? No.
I did. Sorry, I assume you were done.
No, go right ahead. Go. It's fine.
No, I wanted to mention something because I saw it pop up in the questions, and it was a question we had last week a lot too, regarding the size of rosters. When people see 4-on-4, I think they get worried a little bit about how many athletes does that mean I need to take on my team, and if I have 12 and I only play 4, like they're going to be on the bench all day. No, and that's not true, because our rules will allow you to actually split your team. And the details of how that's going to work in MRS, that will be communicated with you, but you will actually be able to split your 12-player team into 2 teams of 6 and go and play, with rotational play, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, because the rules, means you can just have kids go in and out as they get to serve, correct?
Yes.
Right. So it's very fair play, so everybody gets involved. So you can do that. And then, Carrie, can you speak about just mention what happens with the fees, now we have 2 teams, so does that mean it's going to cost us twice as much?
Yeah. So we, this being a very challenging year for us for planning, obviously we're just tailing off on our 3rd wave of this pandemic. They will be coming out shortly, that fee structure, but it will be a fee structure that's friendly to allow you to split your team into 2. So you're not going to be looking at a roster of 12 and you have to pay double entry fee. And like I said before, if you only play on the 4-on-4 age division, you'll only be required to sign up with a recreational membership. You won't have to pay the full, what is it, $88 for these guys. Like, it'll be a rec base. But if you choose to play in other events, then we would ask you to top up. But for these Rallyball 4-on-4, it will be recreational based. And just to touch on what LP said about splitting your team in 2, your teams will be assigned to the same location if you split on 2. Your tournament location will remain the same, and you'll be allowed to split your coaching staff, regardless if your assistant coach is lacking the head coach criteria. So yeah, so just a couple of notes there, just to, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for everybody, just kind of cut those barriers in half. So, okay, I think we'll move on to the next one. LP, you got this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So next stage is our 6-on-6 Rallyball division, which plays with the triple ball rules that we're all familiar with, and just kind of highlighting some of the benefits of triple ball. Looking at the game of 6-on-6 actually at the younger ages, we know this has been demonstrated many times, by ourselves and Volleyball Canada as well, that at the younger age, more than 50% of the serves end up being either an ace or a miss serve. So more than half of the opportunities to play volleyball are gone, and then we're left with less than half to actually play volleyball. So triple ball gives athletes a lot more opportunity to bump, set, and hit, right? Because over 95% of the free balls actually lead to an attack with Rallyball. So when you look at the overall stats, if you compare a game of regular volleyball with the same athletes, in a game of triple ball, again, with the same athletes, it's over 2 times the number of contacts that the kids get in the same scoring game, right? So lots more contact, lots more rallies. Like Carrie said, that's what explains the name of that division. So lots of benefits there after athletes move on from the 4-on-4 Rallyball to then the 6-on-6 Rallyball.
Okay, just some more points on Rallyball here. 6-on-6 Rallyball. It's a format geared towards teams and athletes with exposure to Rallyball in the 4-on-4 format, and those needing more rallies to learn the flow of the game. Again, it's another great opportunity to develop those fundamentals and also introduce system and tactics of the 6-on-6 volleyball game. And for this, I'm not sure if I mentioned it for 4-on-4 Rallyball. 4-on-4 Rallyball, all the tournaments are going to be round robin events, which will mean we're not having medals. So you won't have a winner, but we do want to make sure that our kids are walking with a little token, but we will not be awarding medals. They will be keeping score, yes. We will have pool charts and, that kind of, scoring tracking, but we're focusing on development and getting as many games in against as many different teams as possible. So unlike 4-on-4 Rallyball, 6-on-6 Rallyball will be alternating what we're terming development and challenge events. So a development event is an event where it is round robin. It is a chance where you can put your skills that you're working on in practice in a game, and not have that fear of screwing up trying your overhand serve or something like that. So you'll have those development events and you'll have the challenge events. Challenge events mean something. You're going to earn points, you're going to earn medals, and it's going to go towards ranking for Ontario championships. So I'll move on to the next slide, with is another chart, which we had talked about before. Well, not talked about, we showed previously. So 6-on-6 Rallyball is formerly our 13U. We have a 24-month eligibility here, so which kind of means it's 2008 and under. Let's slow it down. So yeah, we have 2 divisions here, male and female. They are going to have 5 regular season events, regional competitions, and again, alternating development and challenge events. We are going to keep these events as regional as possible, but this is a big group of kids for us. So last year, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, we had about 150 teams within the 13U age division for our regular season events. So that's a lot of teams. So we may have to create a divisional split, but again, we're going to try to keep those as regionally based as possible. We are going to have fair play, regular court size. Our net height is as what it has been at this age division, and again, no specialization. Yeah, so that's 6-on-6 Rallyball. I think I'm good. I don't see LP with his hand up, so we will carry on. Okay, traditional non-specialized TNS. Okay, LP, take it away.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead if you want. Yeah, no, I was just looking at the chat, and then there's a couple questions, but we'll come back to them. So yeah, traditional and specialized are next step into the progression. So what that will do is obviously delay specialization. And just so that we're all talking about the same thing here, so you have an idea, Carrie's going to get into the details of this a little bit. But when we talk about traditional non-specialized, is we're playing traditional volleyball. We're not in a triple ball anymore. We don't have the free ball anymore. We're having serves back and forth. But for the first couple of events of the year, just like it was the case in the past that at 14U for the first event, it was non-specialized. Now that's going to apply to the first 2 events. So there's going to be no specialization, and you then pick the position on the court, which is the setter, and everybody going through that position becomes a setter. And then after the first two events, you can choose to either stick with that or do a little bit of specialization, but not fully specialized. So you can essentially play a 6-2 or a 6-3, the only or any other system that you want, really, other than a 5-1. So essentially the only system you won't be able to play here is one where you only have one setter for the entire 6 rotations. So yeah, so now that we know what we're talking about, we can clearly understand that it's going to delay a little bit of specialization, which, by the way, early specialization has been linked to burnout and a higher rate of chronic injuries. So that's definitely one reason. The other one, which I think is also really important, and that our committee felt very strongly about, was that playing multiple positions actually helps players understand the game better, because they can experience the game from different positions. And in playing different positions, they develop a lot of transferable skills that will help them perform this position they eventually end up specializing in. And not only that, but playing all these different positions actually could mean that they can play longer, because who knows what position they're going to be asked to play 2-3 years down the road when they go to a tryout and they get to a team where they don't actually need another left side. They need a middle, or they need a libero, or they need a setter or something. And then now that player that's been playing these other positions for a little bit longer than they would have normally can now maybe feel a bit more confident about playing in different positions. So all great advantages of this system.
Okay, so just a little more on our TNS. It's again geared towards athletes with exposure to 6-on-6 Rallyball, and again understanding the systems of a 6-on-6 volleyball and tactics. It's a great opportunity to develop multiple positional skills. understand the relationship between the different positions in 6-on-6 volleyball. For this age division, we will be having 1 development tournament and 4 challenge events. So we have obviously progressed through these early contact age divisions into a more competitive format. But with the 4 challenge events, we are not going to have relegation down. So we're going to start the season a little differently and just continually build up our upper tiers rather than up and down, up and down, up and down. So, you know, we spoke about that earlier, about the fear of, you know, losing and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're still fostering that development, but still encouraging competition. So that's a little more about our traditional non-specialized stream. A couple more points here. So these are the formally the birth years that would be in traditional non-specialized. So birth years are a bit different. So the females will have a 16-month eligibility to play in TNS, and the boys will have a 24-month eligibility, just to focus or to align with long-term athlete development and the different scales that the boys and girls have at these ages. We all know it's all over the place, right? So male and female divisions, we have 5 regular events per season. There's a gradual buildup of competitive tiers with no downward movement, which I just talked about. Fair play, court size is regular, net height is regular, and we're going to slowly introduce allowing different systems to play. So obviously our first events are going to be non-specialized, and then progress into a system as long like a 6-2 or a 6-3, something like that, but you won't be permitted a 5-1. I don't know if LP wants to, he's the technical guru here, if you want to.
Sorry, I was reading some of the questions and I did not hear your question.
No, it wasn't a question. It was just making sure that I'm giving out the right information with permitting alternate systems later in the year for traditional unspecialized. So progressing out of a 6-6 into a 6-2, 6-3, but not a 5-1.
That's correct.
Okay, gold star. Okay, thanks, LP. And so that's a brief synopsis of what we have been working on. I want to, like LP touched on it before, it was really my first time working so close with a committee on a project such as this. And I was, it was great. I was really impressed by the individuals on the committee and their commitment and their want to really improve our sport and make it better for everybody. So I personally, and I'm sure I speak for Caitlin and Mark as well, would really like to thank the IVDC and all their hard work. So thank you very much, guys. And I'm proud of what we have here, and I really do think it's going to go very far for kids finding their fit in the sport and, you know, really wanting to continue on and be volleyball for lifers. So yeah, so that's my little announcement. But just so you know what our next steps are after this, information will be going live to the public, to our site, and we will be having email blasts out mid-June. We will be wanting to deliver coach webinars on how to deliver early contact for your club. That's something that's going to be, we're going to be releasing throughout the summer in prep for the fall season. We are going to have developmental materials to support what we have. So you can educate your parents, your athletes, other coaches in your club, different marketing tools. So, you know, Rallyball, you can kind of promote Rallyball, even though, you know, it's an exciting new game, but it's triple ball. Obviously, we are going to review what we deliver here. So we want to make sure that we're going to be continually looking at this throughout the year and reaching out for feedback. So we hope that everybody will be involved in that process as well. So I'm sure we have tons of questions we want to get to. So Caitlin.
Yes. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to shoot them out there. If I haven't answered them in the chat, I'm going to be asking the youth comp staff and all the OVA staff here. If any of you have the answer for it, just go ahead and jump on the answer. Okay, so the first question is 4-on-4 and 6-on-4, a 6-on-6, provincials a development or a competitive event?
So 6-on-6 provincials Rallyball will be a competitive event. 4-on-4 Rallyball, we will be giving away medals. It will be, there's still going to be a huge focus on development and more of a festival jamboree feel to it rather than do or die power pool type of thing going on.
Perfect. And when you were talking about 24-month eligibility and 12-month eligibility and whatnot, can you just describe what that means? Because there was some confusion as to what that would entail.
Okay, yes. So right now, our birth years are 1 year. Basically, you're born in this year, and then you're eligible for that age division. So by expanding it to 24 months, then that means you have 2 years that you could participate in that age division. So whether you're 13 or 14, you can play in 6-on-6 Rallyball and not worry about it. Like LP was talking about, we all know those really tall kids that are maybe a bit awkward in their 14U bodies and need that extra year at Rallyball to really develop, or they're, really athletic kids that is their first time seeing volleyball. So we want to make sure that we are creating a system that increases the eligibility for each of the divisions so you can find your fit. So you're not going to worry about being in over your head or you need to be challenged. So, our system always allows that challenge to happen too. Just because you're a birth year puts you in a certain stream, but your skill level puts you in a different one. We don't want you to stay in that stream where you don't belong. If you're a standout 13U, play 14U. You're not going to get better by just staying within that. Being a big fish in a small pond, you kind of got to push yourself and really play at the skill level you're at, not the age division you are.
Perfect. LP, you might be able to answer this one. The question is, why not 5-1?
So, well, we have 5-1. If you want to play 5-1 system, you can play it in 15U events. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think we have to understand that, again, these rules are put in place to give you the flexibility to do what's right for your athletes. So if you have a team of very experienced athletes, they've gone through all the stages, really, they've done it all. They did the 4-on-4, they did the 6-on-6 triple ball in the Rallyball division, and you did a year of traditional and specialized, or maybe not. And then you think that they're ready for a 5-1 because your athletes very well. And you're a great coach that cares about the development of your athletes, and you really think that 5-1 is the best thing for them. Awesome. We actually, trust that you and trust that that's the best decision for your athletes. And so the 15U division is there for you. Now, your athletes may be a bit younger, but you'll be able to find a great fit probably in the Trilling division, perhaps, or maybe even in the championship division. 15U is very wide. We have a ton of teams. There's a wide range of skill level between the top of Premier, and the bottom of Trilling. And so, that's an opportunity for you to play 5-1 there. And even though the athletes may be a bit older, you will certainly find an appropriate skill level for your team there to play 5-1. So, yeah. Absolutely.
And just to add on LP, finding your right fit, you can try other formats throughout the year. So if you start in 6-on-6 rally ball, and you're like, well, my kids can't do this. We just made that step from house league. We need to go down and try some, 4-on-4. We want to stay in 4-on-4. You can definitely do that, or you can, take that step up to traditional and specialized. And in traditional and specialized, you're definitely able to take that leap into 15U as well. So there's no rigidity too much within the system. Obviously, there's parameters around eligibility. It's not a free for all, but we're trying to make it as flexible as possible.
And I think we all have to realize that, and we talked about this in discussions with the committee, but we think that obviously in the first couple of years we're gonna all learn about how to navigate this. And so, like Gary said, perhaps like the first time around you go into a division and you'll find out, oh, actually my athletes are either too advanced for this or not enough, right? So her example is great. Like you play 6-on-6 in a Rallyball division and your athletes just stand there and they're not really engaged. You think, hey, 4-on-4 will actually be more fun and more engaging for them. You do that switch. And over time, I think as coaches and clubs, like we will actually figure out what actually is the best route for athletes. So it may take a few years for us to really get there, but we'll have to kind of learn it all together. So.
Yeah, so this question came up quite a few times, so just want to state it out right now. Is there an order that you have to go in? Do you have to do 4-on-4, 6-on-6, and then TNF, or can you go where your team fits?
Go where your team fits. So absolutely, hashtag find your fits, which Lindsay is going to talk about a little bit in just a few minutes here. So yeah, absolutely, you can find your fit. Obviously we feel that there's a developmental progression. If you are beginning the sport at 11 or 12, we really do feel like there's that benefit of learning 4-on-4 and building those fundamentals, growing through rallies and getting those touches in 6-on-6 rally ball, and then really understanding the game with different systems and tactics with traditional and specialized. So yes, there's a progression there, but we understand if you're coming in at a certain age and you do have those options, then by all means, please find your fit.
Sure, and listen to your athletes, right, and be really sensitive to what they say to you and how they react, and you'll see, because I think we've all been there as coaches where we're really proud of our athletes and their team, and we think, oh well, yeah, they're ready for regular volleyball, and we'll take them to 15U and play regular volleyball there in the 5-1. And after the first couple of events, perhaps you talk to your athletes and you realize that they're not enjoying themselves as much. They'd like to be more, perhaps successful playing against kids their age, and that would be more meaningful and fun to them. And obviously what's more meaningful and fun to the athletes is what's going to be best for their development and what's going to, maximize their performance. So at that point, okay, well, let's go and play traditional and specialized then. Yeah, so I think that's kind of also what we need to keep in mind when it comes to all of this.
Awesome. Okay, next question. Are there any suggestions on what these changes might mean for the tryouts?
LP, do you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like for tryouts, it's a good question. How there may be changes, there may not be changes, right? Like I think for this coming year, as we kind of all, like I said earlier, as we navigate these changes, perhaps you don't have the reflex of seeing an older athlete who has great potential and who could benefit from playing at a younger age group, right? Or at a lower progression, let's say. Perhaps we don't have that reflex, or it may not change anything for your selection. But I think we, again, as we do this for a few years, I think we're going to become more and more sensitive to those opportunities for grabbing certain athletes and saying, oh, well, you're a little bit more advanced, so we'll put you here. And, so that in the end, as you're looking as a club and you're looking to obviously you want to have athletes that will fill your teams all the way until 18U. So you want to make sure that on a given year, you're not picking like 35 14-year-olds and only 6 13s, right? Just because that makes sense for you at that point. You're probably going to want to make sure that in your club, between the different teams, you kind of maintain a certain number of athletes in the same birth year. But before, we kept all these athletes. If I wanted to have in my club 24 athletes that were born in 2008, well, I would put them all in whatever 14U this coming year, right? Now, the thing this year is that you can have those 24 athletes split into 3 different age groups. So that may be the change that eventually happens with selection. Not to say that it's going to be a reflex and it's going to happen a lot this coming year, but I think that's where we're definitely going.
Okay, questions just keep coming in, so I'm going to try and go quick with this. How many of the events are non-specialized for 14U? Traditional and specialized?
All of them.
All of them are non, yeah.
Sorry, like the first 2 are absolutely non-specialized 6-6, and then after you can use 6-2, 6-3, any of these semi-specialized systems.
How will you create tiers without relegations? Mark, you might be able to do this one.
Yeah, I'll grab that one. So as Carrie mentioned, obviously with the numbers being as large as they are for traditional non-specialized and 6-on-6 Rallyball, even though our goal is not to put too much emphasis on winning, we do have to obviously create some tiers to manage that competitive balance a little bit. And so, for example, in 6-on-6, we're most likely looking at about 3 divisions. And by not relegating, it essentially just means that we're growing each tier after each competitive event. So let's say after the first event, everyone's at the same level in Trillium, and then we might build out Premier, Championship, and Trillium for that next event. And let's say there's 18 in Premier and 27 in Championship. But that further event where you typically have relegation down to maintain that 18 and 27, we would just grow that to, let's say, 27 and 36. So basically each tier grows in numbers each time to prevent that relegation from happening.
And is it fair to say, Mark, that there could even be also the creation at some point of another division on top, right?
Yes, and we're just kind of talking about that the other day of how obviously it's so hard to predict this upcoming year with numbers, and we have our whole formula breakdown of our ideal kind of pyramid and percentage breakdowns for each division, and so we'll be definitely looking at that once we see the actual numbers of registrations come in.
Perfect. So to go along with that, with not moving up and down in tiers and divisions, would tournaments have different teams, or would the same teams play each other at every tournament?
So that would be similar to what we currently do in that we, like Caitlin and I, when we're doing our team splits on the back end, we do keep track of every team and which event they've been at and which teams they play. Obviously, with like the far east, far west, far north, it's pretty hard to manage the geographic limiting travel also while always having different teams to play. So it will be a continued balancing act, but that will definitely be something that we take into consideration and try and switch up the best we can to give you different teams to play.
Okay, can a 15U team try to fit in TNS for part of the season and then compete at 15U later on in the season?
So is this a 15U team bouncing in between the tiers? Obviously, you can do that provided all the eligibility requirements on your roster fit within those age divisions. If you want to play 15U and play in Ontario Championships, we have to play in those 2 15U events to play in Ontario Championships. Those eligibility requirements won't be changing, but yes, you could play in 14U and 15U.
Yeah, and let's just mention that this is this is true for sure for boys teams, but not necessarily for girls teams. You would have to have a girls teams where all athletes are born after September of the eligibility year in order to do that. And just another mention, and there'll be obviously more details in like the full handbook, but as a team, you will be able to do that, but there will be restrictions for individual athletes to bounce between teams. So it will be allowed to a certain extent. There will be a point where you need to pick what level is best for a single athlete, just to avoid, a team having, like, for some reason, sending a player to a bunch of different divisions just to improve the results of a team. But as a team, if all the players meet the criteria, you can move to different.
Right. Just again, this is obviously if your team fits there. If your team would benefit from playing in the traditional non-specialized. So just really kind of keeping an eye on if my team fits here, and if they'll benefit from playing in this.
Okay, so I have 4 questions left. So we'll just go through those really quickly. And then if we have other questions, then we'll work on those. But okay. Okay, so how do you foresee the availability of gyms impacting the plans to run 5 events? Any word on what school boards are looking for or looking at for allowing gyms in the fall?
Yes,
This is an amazing question. Obviously, yes, everything hinges on gyms. Mark, I'll let you speak to this a little.
And yes, like obviously that's the biggest golden question that every single person on this call has right now, and what will end up happening there. We still got a bit of time, but yeah, that's the big question. But one thing we are looking at changing this year, and I know it's not the most ideal scenario, but we are looking at running more Sunday event or Sundays on our calendar, as opposed to in the past we've had 1, maybe 2. But just looking at the number of gyms needed on each competition day, I was just reviewing last year. The majority of our dates, we're looking at about 28, upwards of 40 gyms on any given tournament day. But by adding a bunch more Sundays, we can drop that number significantly. So we're hoping that would help. But yeah, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what ends up opening.
And we are also entertaining the idea of smaller events and opening up those facilities that are traditionally 2 courts, something along that lines. Obviously, we don't know what September is going to bring. We don't know what the government regulations are. And we will obviously do our best to adapt and deliver within those regulations. We have put a traditional season lens on this when developing it, but it is fully adaptable for those smaller numbers, and being a bit more creative on that scheduling side as well.
Awesome. So when will these events be scheduled around each other? Like, will they be scheduled around each other? Will the 6-on-6 Rallyball try to be on a different weekend than traditional specialized, for example?
Right, we're still working on the calendar right now, but we will make sure that there is playing opportunity for those teams to try and sample each stream. Absolutely, we'll try to do that. Now, we're not going to say that every weekend is going to be open. You'll have your pick of them, but we do have a jam-packed calendar, as everybody knows, and as our numbers grow, flexibility in placing events dwindle. So. But we will make sure that there's opportunities for everybody to play in each of those streams.
Perfect. Okay, so when will the Ltad 3.0 be released? It will be helpful for coaches to be able to review this well before the season.
Yeah, great question. I don't have an answer for this. This is a Volleyball Canada project. They've consulted us on it, and presented us with their draft. So we have an idea what's in it and what's going to come out in it, but we have no idea when it's actually going to come out. We've been told June, then closer to September. The recommendation that we made to Volleyball Canada is that they release it by September at least, so that it's available before our season. The thing you need to remember is that other provinces don't start club until January. So sometimes Volleyball Canada, will kind of think it's okay to release something in the middle of November or December, where, for us, it's really important that it gets out before, tryouts. So so that was our recommendation, to release it as soon as possible by September, and that if they need to look at more stuff and make some updates, then they can make updates next September, for example. So at least we have something to work with. There's definitely going to be some great suggestions in that document in how to approach development of athletes. So yeah, we're going to keep working with Volleyball Canada on that to see if they can do that for us by September.
Okay, and last one that I have here, what efforts, if any, have been made to align the OVA with school volleyball? Different rules, season conflicts, etc.
Yeah, great question. We've had meetings with OVSA people, not in the last year and a half, not since the pandemic started, but prior to, and it's quite challenging to align everything from the OVA and what we do here, and then what the schools do, just because of the way the schools work and the school sports system works, and the fact that there's so many different school systems and they all have their different rules. So really what we've heard of is people actually, people who are volleyball coaches, who are also part of a school, they're teachers, they're also a school coach or something, actually, working to influence their school district and division to actually adopt some of our OVA rules. So, this is a longer conversation, I think, that we could have with people in the community. It's definitely, in an ideal world, yeah, everything would be aligned. Everywhere you play volleyball, it would kind of be aligned. That makes total sense. Now, in reality, there's a lot of challenges out there. But this is something that we can probably put on the agenda at some point for the next couple of years to look at solutions, look at approaching different options.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Okay, just one more just popped up. To help teach the game, will younger athletes be encouraged to line and score as well?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to learn the game. As of right now, we do not have any initiative to move forward with the athletes lining and scoring.
Okay, so
so I just have one note. I just want to clarify one thing. I noticed there's a question about the number of events being 5. And I just want to clarify that that is the case, but only for the early contact. So for example, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Well, sorry, not 18, but those middle age groups, they're still the traditional 4. And the main reason there is with us having those non-competitive events in the mix. And this year we're having absolutely no results from these kids from previous years either. So it's a complete fresh start. So we need that time to build some of those tiers in the traditional non-specialized and 6-on-6. And just one other thing too about the Sundays. Obviously that is one consideration when we are building. I just looked at our first draft, and for age groups that have 4 total tournaments, our goal would be not to have more than 1 Sunday. And then if you're an age group that's 5 tournaments, our goal would not to be have more than 2 Sundays on the schedule. But obviously we're doing the best we can to try and spread that out amongst all the age groups.
Perfect. So I think that's all the questions at this time. If we wanted to continue on with the presentation, because I know we're already 9:45. So we can continue on, and if you have any other questions, feel free to add them into the chat, or you can send an email to any one of the OVA staff on the call today, and we'll be able to answer all your questions for you.
Should also note that we will be posting FAQs and answers from this chat when we send out the recording and that. So. Okay, I will share my screen and then. So this is where we left off, and I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay Bax, our business development manager. There we go. I know Lindsay she lives in the country on a farm. So I know she's been having internet troubles. Oh, there she is. Let's see her on the screen.
Oh, she's muted.
Oh.
Because she left and then came back and is not a co-host anymore. Sorry.
Can you do that? Can I do that, Elfie?
No, I did it. It's okay. You can unmute now.
Thank you.
That's perfect.
Yes, yes, country Wi-Fi is wonderful. So one of the things that we had identified was with a lot of these changes, we're kind of in a position where we can really do our best to help our clubs take this information and get it out to the public. So we have a couple of things that are really exciting coming down the pike. And one is the Find Your Fit campaign. So leading into this summer, everybody is excited to get back and play, and we're going to have a lot of new people coming into the game, a lot of kids returning to the game, and we're a year and a half different from where we left. So allowing everybody to have this information to help promote their clubs and what each of these areas, especially this early contact initiative, is. So we have come together and we are building a repository of social media tools and marketing tools, frequently asked questions, modules for people and coaches to help develop your program with some pre-made stuff. Now, keep in mind, all of this information will be yours to use or yours not to use. But we fully understand that what this is it's a lot of new things. And we know that everybody right now is very busy and it can be very overwhelming to be a small club with a one-person marketing team and coach and parent all in the same, wearing all the same hat. So what we're creating is social media tools that talk about what is 4v4, what is 6v6, what is traditional non-specialized, what is the regular stream of volleyball, what is Team Ontario, all of these different things that we offer at the OVA level. So we're putting together this repository so you'll be able to go, because we know a lot of coaches are responsible for everything to do with their team. And you'll be able to take that information, utilize it on your own social media, utilize it with your own parents privately or other teams, whatever it might be. And then for clubs that might have somebody on staff who is totally savvy and look after everything, we'll also have customizable pieces with the same information available for everyone. We intend to have another meeting here in about a week or so with those people who wear that hat when we have this repository a little bit more filled out for everyone so they can see what it is, where it is, how it's going to look. But the other thing we have, or that we'll ask, is we don't know all the questions and all the answers that you're getting, because you are really the frontline people for a lot of these things. So if you are hearing questions and you feel that it's a very broad question that most clubs will be hearing, then we're happy to develop those marketing tools and put them in the repository for everybody to share, and definitely, have that open line of communication. It is our goal to make sure that everybody has access to it who wants access to it, but even more importantly, we want this to become a collaborative piece as we continue to build this out, because the next exciting piece is we have the Olympic Games coming up with some really strong Canadian contingencies there. And we really want to make sure that when, those little girls and young boys are watching our Canadian athletes, and they go and search for their local volleyball club, that you have the information so they can find their fit, have the best experience possible, and you continue to grow your club with the positive experiences as much as possible for them and for yourselves, and with hopefully the least amount of work possible on your end, because we know that everybody who works in a club, you know, you're doing this on your own time. In most cases, you all have real jobs on top of this. So we are making a concerted effort to make sure that everybody has as much information as they want, and we'll develop other information that is relevant to the greater good of everyone throughout the course of this year, and then obviously continue to expand this repository over the years to have other things that are relevant for future events as well. So that's the Cole's notes of what this is. We will obviously be in touch with club presidents and people who are directly involved with the marketing if they want to get a little bit more in depth with which pieces these that we have for everybody, what we still need to have, and having those conversations. So so you will start to see the Find Your Fit campaign come out here in the next little while. We will definitely be ramping up around just leading into the Olympic Games to make sure that anybody who is watching the games and decides that they want to come and play 4v4 or 6v6 or traditional and specialized, whatever it is that they want to enter their point at, we want to make sure that they can find all of that information as easily as possible so they can get in touch with their local club and make sure that they have an opportunity to play while they're still really excited and play volleyball for the rest of their life. So that is what the Find Your Fit campaign is about in a nutshell. I won't keep you any longer because I know everybody would like to go to bed at a reasonable hour, and I will turn it back over to Carrie.
Okay, well, that's it for tonight. Again, anybody has any questions, feel free to email any one of us. We'll be happy to help you out with your questions. And again, we are going to have, this isn't us dropping it in your lap and running. We have lots of other educational tools and resources that will be released throughout the summer to get everybody ready for this early contact initiative. And yeah, feel free to drop us a line and send us your questions. So without further ado, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us. We really love seeing this many people on the call and this much interest. And so thank you, everybody, and have a great night.